Hi everybody, Mr. Myron here with another Mr. Myron mini math lesson for you. This is our second video of the year. Again, it's a review. It's hoping that you can figure out how to work your way through this virtual learning. We're going to go over long division today. We're going to walk through the steps of how to divide and get an answer. So please make sure that you're working this with me. This is one of the most important concepts that you can learn and master this year. All right, I've been teaching sixth grade for 6 years now. This is my seventh year. And one of the things that I've seen that makes life a lot easier for students in my math class is if they can divide. It's going to help you when we get to our ratios. It's going to help you when we get to our rates. It's going to help you when we get to our fractions, our decimals. If you know how to divide, right, using the standard algorithm for division, it's going to make your math lives a lot easier. Okay, so this is a video that I hope that you come back to time after time. Make sure you're practicing. Make sure that you are just understanding how to do this. Parents, if you're watching, be excited. This is how you learned how to divide. I have a little saying that I like to use. I have a sign in my classroom about it. That might be a little different than something that you learned, but the steps themselves are exactly how you learned it. So division, guys, is exactly, parents, how you learned it. So if you want to show them your method, fine with me, because it's the same way that I'm teaching how to do it. I know some people have done something called partial quotient. This needs to trump that. You cannot use partial quotient once you get to sixth grade, because you cannot get a decimal answer in partial quotient, but you can get a decimal answer in long division. So please make sure you're doing it. Before we get started, I just want to go over my sayings, some tips and tricks that I like to use as we do division problems. This video might be a little bit longer because the steps to explain do take quite a bit of time. All right, so bear with me, stay with me. Again, if you feel like you know division, right when we get to the problems, if you want to try the problem first on your own and then match it up with me, that's fine. If you don't know what you're doing, if you've never done long division, if you don't know what you're doing, please do every step with me. You have to take notes in your math notebook. You have to put them down. You have to try the problems. Your brain will start to learn the process if you write them in order with me. All right, so I'll try to go nice and slow so you can catch up. I'll try to stay nice and slow so you can catch up, so you can stay with me. All right, so some tips and tricks that are important. So these are our steps, okay? These are our steps to division. And I don't know if you can fully see it, so I'm going to move that up. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. It's, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? Don't answer that. If you work at McDonald's, I apologize. But it's just a way that we can remember our steps. Each of these letters, right, notice they're in red, they all stand for something, right? So the D stands for divide. The M stands for multiply. The S stands for subtract. The C, some people skip this step. You can be right with skipping this step, but this is a nice way to check yourself. All right, and that's a check. All right, the B stands for bring down, and the R stands for repeat. And you go back and you divide all over again. So again, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? We're going to divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, repeat until we get to the end. All right, another thing that's very helpful is to know your times tables or to use a multiplication chart. All right, I'm going to show you what I mean by know your times tables. Or know your multiplication chart. If you have a multiplication chart, then you don't need to do the times tables. You can just use this chart. If you struggle with your times tables, right, like myself, you're going to struggle with division, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Notice that there's a multiplication step in here, right? Remember, we are working on division. If we struggle with multiplication, we're going to struggle with division. I have a step. I have this times table trick. I have this multiplication chart trick. If you use that trick, it lets you not focus on the multiplication, and you're able to stay smooth, stay fluid in the problem. If you have to stop and think about the multiplication every time, it makes it a lot harder. But if you do the multiplication in the beginning, it's going to make it a lot easier. All right, after that, another way that we can do it is graph paper. If you are someone like myself who struggles to write neat, who struggles to keep things in a vertical line, try to do it in graph paper. And each box is one single digit in the problem. right? This is a division. When you see the problems done out, if you get off track, if you get sideways and slanted, it's going to be really hard for you to read. So graph paper is a nice, easy way for people to do it. Other way you can do is you can turn your notebook so that way the lines are vertical, not horizontal. So that way you can keep the lines in a row correctly that way. All right, and the biggest thing is your place values need to line up. Look, you feel like you're in school, we've got announcements going on. Look at that. Your place values need to line up. That has to do with the graph paper. You need to have all your ones in the ones place, all your tens in the tens place. You need to keep that as you move throughout the whole process of division. All right, so let's get started. So here we go. One of the biggest problems that students have, especially once they get into 6th grade, is understanding which number goes inside the house and which number goes outside the house. All right, a lot of you are saying, well, it's the 6. It is the 6, but it's not the reason that you think it's the 6. It's not the 6 because it's the smaller number. That thinking needs to leave. You need to get rid of that thinking in 6th grade. We are going to see problems where the bigger number is outside the smaller number, because a lot of the things we do in 6th grade has to do with decimals. We're not going to do that yet. The reason that 6 goes on the outside is because 6 is your divisor. All right, that's your divisor. Okay? Your divisor is always SOAR, and there's a sign in my classroom. Oh, it's right up here. Okay, there's a sign in the classroom. You can't see it right now, but I will share that out with you. The divisor is always SOAR. Okay? Because in the division column, he's always last. Notice he's last, 348. 6 is last. Right? Divisor is always SOAR. He's always on the bottom. Right? So division, just so you know, can be written as a fraction. Right? This says the same thing as this. Right? So the divisor is always SOAR. He's always upset. He's always unhappy because he's last. He's on the bottom. And you guessed it, he's left out. Okay? That's one way to remember it. The divisor, the number that's last, always goes outside the house. Again, it's not because it's the smaller number. Please don't do that anymore. Okay? So here we go. We've got our problem. We've got it set up. 6, how many times does 6 fit into 348? All right, so again, we're going to do our steps. Right? We've got does, McDonald's, sell, cheese, burgers, raw. Make sure you remember that. I'm going to scooch this up so make sure you see it. Okay? Here's that multiplication times table trick that I want you guys to remember or to use. If you struggle with multiplying, okay, here's what you can do. Over on the side, before you even get started, 6 times 1 equals 6. 6 times 2 equals 12. 6 times 3 equals 18. 6 times 4 equals 24. 6 times 5 equals 30. Times 6 equals 36. Times 7 equals... Mr. Meyer makes mistakes. Look at that. 42. Times 8 equals 48. And times 9 equals 54. Does anyone know why I can stop at 9 and I don't have to keep going? Again, just like multiplication, every time you do the math, there's only one digit that you can put into a place value. So the highest that I can go is up to 9. All right? And again, 6 times 0, hopefully you know that, is 0. But the reason I do this, all right, the reason I take the time to do this, is one, I can count by 6s very easily and figure out what these are. Okay? And then now, when I go over here, this multiplication step, I'm not thinking, I'm just plugging, and I'm able to move quickly. And I'm not going to lose my train of thought. I'm not going to lose where I am when I go over here and start multiplying on the side. If I do this multiplication in the beginning, it makes this a lot quicker. If you're very good at your multiplication, your times tables, don't feel like you have to do this. If you're someone that struggles with your timetables, create this or use that multiplication chart. And it basically has this, if you know how to read a multiplication chart, it has this done out for you. So here we go. Let me show you this over here. It does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw. All right, the very first question I'm going to ask myself is, how many times does 6 go into 3? It doesn't. It goes in 0 times. I like to put a 0 there. Some people put an X there. Some people skip it. I don't care what you put there. as long as you're understanding that your place values need to line up. 6 does not go into 3. All right? Technically, what you're supposed to do is after you divide, you multiply. So you're going to multiply 0 times 6. 0 times 6 is 0. After you multiply, you subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. Please note, anytime you do one of these steps, the answer you get from that step is used in the next step. All right, once we get to C, the check, this is one that people can skip. You can skip, you don't have to skip. I like that you don't skip it. It just ensures you get the right answer. What you're going to check is if the answer you get from your subtraction problem is smaller than this number on the outside. If this number is bigger or greater than this number, that means this number is wrong and you need to fix it. Okay, but if this number is smaller, that means you've put the most amount that can fit in, and that's a good thing. If it's smaller, what you're going to do is you're going to bring down. You're going to bring down that 4. Okay? A lot of you might say, you can skip all of this. Absolutely. If you can see that, 6 does not go into 3, it's going to be 0 times, and you're going to end up with that 3 again. A lot of people can just leave it here. And instead of doing all that work, they go, all right, if 6 doesn't go into 3, how many times does 6 go into 34? 6 goes into 34. Jump over here. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 6 is 36. So it doesn't fit in 6 times. It only fits in 5 times. All right, so you put your 5 up there. After you divide, multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. After you multiply, you're going to subtract. 34 minus 30 is 4. And if you did not erase that original step, notice you have on your paper 34 minus 30 is 4. It's just a little bit lower. That's all it is. It's not extra. It's not that much extra work. It's just a nice little 2-second shortcut if you can see it. All right. After I subtract, I'm going to check, is 4 smaller than 6? Yes, therefore 6 could not fit into 34 any more times because it's a smaller number than 6. After we check, we bring down. After we bring down, we repeat. We go back to the top. Divide. How many times does 6 go into 48? 6 goes into 48. Take a look over here. All right, 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 8 is 48. It fits in exactly 8 times. 8 times 6 is 48. After we multiply, we subtract. 48 minus 48 is 0. And now that I've reached the end of my number, I've reached the ones place, and I have a remainder of 0, I know that my answer is 58. Okay? Listen, I understand for some of you this is difficult. For some of you, I understand the steps are difficult. It's hard. You need to practice long division. It's going to make a whole bunch of concepts that we do later on this year a lot easier. If you can understand how to divide using this algorithm, you're going to be able to get decimal answers. You're going to be able to get decimals on the inside, decimals on the outside. You're going to be able to get all sorts of numbers. It's going to make your life a lot easier. I promise you. Get it done now. Understand this now. If you're struggling with me, see me during your win period. See me during your study hall. This needs to happen. Your parents can help you because this is how they learned it. I promise you. They may not have had the same saying, but they had the same exact steps. All right, let's do the next one. 603 divided by 9. The very first thing and the most important step is understanding what number goes on the outside and why. It's not 9 because it's the smallest. It's 9 because it's the divisor. The divisor is always short because he's always last. He's always on the bottom. And he's always left out. Please remember that. That is huge. If you put the wrong number on the outside and inside, your answer is going to be wrong. There's nothing I can do about that. All right, so 603 divided by 9. If 9 goes on the outside, 603 goes on the inside. All right, if you want to write your steps over here, you can. Okay, if you struggle with your times tables, if you struggle with your 9 times tables, right, 9 times 1 equals 9, times 2 equals 18, times 3 equals 27, times 4 equals 36, times 5 equals equals 45 times 6 equals 54 times 7 equals 63 times 8 equals 72 times 9 equals 81. If you struggle with timetables and you can't do it that fast, look what's happening. All right, look what's happening. All right, look at what's happening in the ones place. In the ones place, it's going 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in the tens place, it's going 0, 1, 2, 3. So if you can pick up on patterns, it'll make your life a lot easier as well. So here we go. Now that I have this done, I've got my problem set up, I've got my steps over here. The very first thing is divide. How many times does 9 go to 6? It doesn't. If I want to go through all the steps, I can. But what I'm going to end up with is how many times does 9 go into 60? All right, so you come over here, 9 into 60. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 7 is 63. It does not fit in 7 times. It fits in 6 times. After you divide, you multiply. 6 times 9 is 54. All right, pause. This, hopefully you didn't pause your screen. You just pause and like listen. This step here doesn't just help with multiplication. It helps with the division. It makes these two steps happen so quickly. All right, so this is a huge deal. If this is something that you struggle with, it's going to make your problems go a lot faster. All right, so we just multiplied 6 times 9 is 54. We're going to subtract. All right, 5 minus 5 is 0. So now 60 minus 54 is 6. After we subtract, we check. Is 6 smaller than 9? It is. Then I can bring down to 3. Come back over here, repeat, divide. How many times does 9 go to 63? Oh, 9 times 7 is 63. It fits in exactly 7 times. 9 times 7 is 63. When you subtract, you get 0. It's smaller. There's nothing to bring down. We're done. We're over 67. 67 is your answer. Circle it, square it, make sure you know it. Be proud of it. Long division is not simple. Let's take a look at the last one. If you want to try on your own, okay, please pause the screen now. Try the problem on your own. Try to do everything that you think you need to do. If you need to set up the steps, write the steps. If you need to do the 12 times tables on the side, do 12 times tables on the side. Try the problem on your own. Come back, watch the video when you're done, and you can see if you got it right. All right, so here's how you do it. Again, 12 should go on the outside. Not because it is the smallest, but because it is last. Okay? Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? 12 times 1 equals 12, times 2 equals 24, times 3 equals 36, times 4 equals 48, times 5 equals 60, times 6 equals 72, times 7 equals 84, times 8 equals 96, times 9 equals 108. And again, I didn't say in the last one, but you can stop at 9 because you can only put a single digit into here. All right, so 12 goes into 5. How many times? 0, right? 12 doesn't go into 5. The very first one is 12, right? So there's a 0 here, an X. You leave it blank as long as you're staying vertical. All right, then we can skip these next steps and go back to the repeat. How many times does 12 go into 58? Well, 12 times 4 is 48, but 12 times 5 is 60. It doesn't fit in 5 times, but it fits in 4 times. 4 times 12 is 48. We subtract, we should get 10. Right? Is 10 smaller than 12? Yes, so I check, and now I bring down. Bring down to 8. Repeat, divide. How many times does 12 go to 108? Over here, 12 times 9 is 108. It's in 9 times. 9 times 12, we already know, is 108. Subtract 0, we have the remainder of 0. With nothing left over, we've reached the end. There's no numbers to bring down. We are done. You need to practice these. We'll be going back to these throughout the year. When we get to the decimal ones, we're going to show you how you can get decimal answers all the way through. But we don't need to worry about that. But if you can understand this now, once we get to that decimal part, it's going to be very simple. So practice these, parents. I'm telling you, encourage your kids to practice these. Give them one a night until they get it. You know these steps. Watch the video over and over and over again. There's plenty of videos out there. Long division. They need to know long division. You need to know long division.